Over Black Friday, we're offering 22% off everything in the TLDR store. From our cute countries with shoes pin badges, including Turkey, to stickers and even our book, Brexit the Colouring Book. And you can get the biggest discount of the year by using code Black Friday. The link is in the description. So on Tuesday, the Turkish lira suffered its worst day since August 2018, falling 9% against the dollar, with a new low of nearly 13 lira per dollar. If this sounds bad, then consider the fact that only a few years ago it was about 3 lira per dollar, meaning that the lira has lost nearly 80% of its original value. As the lira's lost value, inflation has shot up. This is exactly what you'd expect. If a tin of beans from the US is priced at $1, in 2016 it would have cost 3 lira. Today, the price of that same tin of beans would have inflated to nearly 13 lira. Turkey's annual inflation rate today then is about 20%, well above Turkey's historic average of between 5 and 10%. And for context, the UK is currently freaking out about the prospect of 4% inflation. So, what's behind Turkey's economic woes? And how has Erdogan's questionable monetary policy sent the Turkish lira into freefall? Let's explain that right now. This crisis, which has been rumbling on since about 2018, is mainly due to President Erdogan's unorthodox economic policies. We actually explained this in a previous video, so if you want to learn more about Erdonomics, then give it a watch. For those of you who can't be bothered, essentially, when Turkey's economy started growing rapidly in the 2000s, the growth was financed with a lot of loans denominated in foreign currency, both in the private sector and in the public sector. This is because historically, Turkey has suffered from high inflation rates, which meant that Turks didn't really have any savings to invest, because, well, what's the point in saving up your lira if inflation is going to render it valueless in a year's time? Anyway, this became a problem in 2018, once the lira had fallen in value, thanks to a combination of factors including Trump's steel and aluminium tariffs, censorship of financial data, and Erdogan's interference with the central bank, which we'll get onto in a second. As the lira fell in value, Turkey struggled to pay off its foreign debts, and imports became more expensive, forcing inflation up to 20%. Now, when your currency is devaluing and inflation is spiraling out of control, most economics teachers will tell you to do one thing: raise interest rates. If you raise interest rates, you make borrowing more expensive and thus encourage saving. This means that businesses and consumers spend less money, which reduces demand for assets, eventually bringing down inflation. Raising interest rates also increases demand for your currency because it pays out at a better interest rate. And in theory, this should bring up the value of your currency. Now, there are some obvious downsides to this. By limiting access to cheap credit, raised interest rates can slow economic growth. But given that Turkey's main two problems, depreciating currency and rampant inflation, could both be solved by raising interest rates, it would seem like the obvious and right thing to do. Unfortunately for Turks, though, Erdogan apparently doesn't agree with traditional economic theory. Instead of thinking that raising interest rates reduces inflation, Erdogan supposedly believes that raising interest rates increases inflation. Now, to be honest, we're not really sure why Erdogan believes this, but the one thing he mentions most often is the so-called interest rate lobby, a group of people he seems suspicious of, whose members apparently stand to benefit financially from higher interest rates. Anyway, this conspiracy is why over the last 3 years or so, Turkey has been going through central bank governors at a rate of 1 per year. Murat Çetinkaya, in the post since 2016, was fired in 2019 after raising the 1-week repo rate from 17.5% to 24%. And this was the first time a central bank governor had been fired since the 1981 military coup. And as you'd expect, it raised questions about the central bank's independence and spooked foreign investors, causing the lira to fall yet further. The next governor, Murat Uysal, originally did what Erdogan wanted, bringing interest rates down from 24% to 8.25%. But when the lira continued to collapse, as predicted by traditional economic theory, Uysal was forced to raise the interest rates to 10.25%, and then he was promptly sacked by Erdogan. Uysal was then replaced by former finance minister Naci Ağbal, and you can probably guess what happened next. In March 2021, a day after Arbel raised rates back up to 19%, Erdogan replaced him yet again with Sahat Kavcıoğlu, an Erdogan loyalist. Kavcıoğlu has done exactly what Erdogan asked of him, reducing the one-week repo rate to 18% in September, then 16% in October, and on Tuesday, 15%, the lowest rate in 12 months. As most economists predicted, these rate cuts have forced the lira to collapse in value and pushed inflation to new highs. 1 lira is now worth about 8 cents, just 20% of what it was worth in 2015 and 10% of what it was worth in 2008. And in dollar terms, GDP per capita, which grew steadily up until 2013, is back to where it was in 2009. And the World Bank estimates that 3.2 million Turks have fallen into relative poverty in the last few years because of changes like this. Ultimately, things haven't been helped by the bank's revolving door, which has spooked investors, or the pandemic, but it's clear that the fundamental reason for the lira's collapse is Erdogan's unorthodox economic policy. So what happens now? Well, as you'd expect, Erdogan's popularity amongst both the electorate and within his own party is waning. His net approval rating is down to 12.8, the lowest it's been since June 2015 when Erdogan's ruling AKP party lost their majority in parliament. The AKP's coalition, composed of the AKP and the Nationalist Movement Party, are now polling behind the opposition coalition. And were elections held today, polling suggests that Erdogan would lose his majority. So if Erdogan continues to pursue his unorthodox economic policies, and he's proven stubborn in this regard up until now, he'll force the lira to fall yet further, and things will likely only get worse. Nonetheless, it's still far too early to write off Erdogan. A lot can change between now and 2023, when the next elections are due. Despite falling numbers, Erdogan still enjoys high approval ratings by Western standards. Boris Johnson, for example, is currently sitting at -35. And Erdogan still has a stern grip on Turkish media and politics. In the near term then, it's possible that this drop in support will force Erdogan into some performative politics. In the past, when Erdogan's support has waned, he's picked fights with other countries to make him look like the strongman Turkey needs. We already saw this in October, when Erdogan threatened to expel a whole load of ambassadors, forcing a cautiously worded statement from the US. Nominally, this was because those countries had signed a letter urging Turkey to release a Turkish political prisoner, but it probably wasn't a complete coincidence that the spat happened just as Erdogan's approval ratings started to fall. Anyway, what do you think? Will Erdogan finally see the light and reverse his course economically, or is he just too deep? And if he is, what are his odds for the 2023 elections? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Like I said at the start, if you use code Black Friday in our store this weekend, you'll get 22% off everything you order. You heard me, 22%. You can even get 2 signed copies of our book, Brexit the Colouring Book, for just $14.99 if you use the link below. Now, that's some good Brexit news for once. Anyway, treat yourself and your TLDR-loving friends by heading to the store. And by doing so, you're also helping support our work. So thank you very much. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified every time we release a new video. Special thanks to our Patreon backers who make videos like this one possible. And if you want to see your name at the end of videos, then you too can back us on Patreon. The link to that is in the description.